I was delightfully surprised when, a few months into motherhood, when I started to kind of come back into my work, how light it felt and how life-giving it felt, and how much my mothering is actually feeding me as a business owner and as a creator and as a facilitator, and also how my work and my service and my mission feeds my mothering. And now I'm in that and living that. I'm like, of course it was going to be that fucking way. Of course it was going to be that way. Of course, how did I not see that before?
Yo, 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 lovers. Welcome to Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. We're the O'Neills. You're here with Meghan Jacob.
And this is the place we have really uncensored conversations about sex, intimacy, and relationships. We're super excited you're here. Enjoy this episode.
All right. How are you feeling? Do you want to do some a little bit of buzzing breath just to get anchored?
Always.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, breathe in. Couple more. Direct it to any area that you want. Nothing like a little bit of vocal toning.
So good.
All right, we will get started. So everybody, I am joined today by the amazing Meg O'Neill. This is a really exciting podcast because, first of all, it's one of the first podcasts on my podcast, Turned On and Tuned Up. And it also may be going on Meg's podcast because we are doing one thing that mothers do really well, is being efficient with our time. And so if you don't know Meg yet, she is a sex and relationship coach. She is the founder and creator of Full Spectrum Woman, and just an overall badass businesswoman, new mama, and somebody that I very much admire and has been a huge part of my personal awakening journey when it comes to my eros, my pleasure. And Meg, I think you know this. I think I've shared this with you before, but before we started working together, because Meg's actually a client of ours at Presence Media, I was following you, and you were a huge inspiration to me really understanding what it looks like and the language of being a fully expressed woman. And now that I'm indoctrinated in your work and your content, because we work so closely together, it's been transformative in every area of my life, from my 20-year marriage to my business to how I parent. And so having you on this podcast and being one of our first guests feels really special because you have been so instrumental in my own journey. And I feel like there's no one better to have the conversation of business and motherhood and what it truly looks like behind the scenes as a full spectrum woman who is all in on all areas of life, from business to motherhood to pleasure to all of it. And it's a lot of hats to wear. It's a lot of to-dos. And I think as a full spectrum woman, our standards are really high. Like, we're not half-assing life at all. We're going all in all the ways. And I know from my own experience that can definitely feel like a lot sometime, parenting two boys, running companies, teams, like there's so much going on. And I would love to know how you are feeling now, transitioning into being a mom in business. She is 6 months, I think, now. So
just about,
just getting started. But how have you found the transition? And, what does it mean to you to be a full spectrum woman in business and a mom?
I love that. First of all, thank you for that beautiful introduction. And it's so beautiful to hear how, yeah, my work is like seeped into your life. And yeah, well, I'm just also so grateful for our connection and all that you and your work have done for my work and amplifying my work and supporting me to, be in my genius in my own work. Yeah, so I'm almost 6 months into my mothering journey. Actually, will be 6 months in a week or 10 days or something like that, which is fucking wild. So cliche when people are like, it goes so quick, but genuinely, it goes so fucking quick.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I've actually had such an easeful transition. And I want to preface that by saying I was really unsure and curious as to how I would feel about my business once I became a mother. And I actually had this feeling or this nervousness that my business was going to feel like a huge burden and that I was going to be so deep in my motherhood, because that's important to me. Like the way I mother, I'm super present with my son, and my husband, and we're really, I co-sleep, I breastfeed, all of those kind of things. So it's that was number one fucking priority going into motherhood. It's how I'm going to raise my son and be deeply attached to my son and be at the needs, meet the needs of my son. But there was this nervousness of like, oh, because I'm going to be choosing that and that level of presence, it means anything else is going to feel like a burden. Like my business is going to feel really heavy. It's going to feel like, oh, I have to do that. I have to make money. I have to I really thought it was going to feel like that. And I was delightfully surprised when, a few months into motherhood, when I started to kind of come back into my work, how light it felt and how life-giving it felt and how much my mothering is actually feeding me as a business owner and as a creator and as a facilitator, and also how my work and my service and my mission feeds my mothering. And now I'm in that and living that. I'm like, of course it was going to be that fucking way. Of course it was going to be that way. Of course, how did I not see that before? But, when you're on that precipice of about to step into motherhood, you truly do not know what it's going to be like at all, right? Even if you can see other people living it out, you do not know what your experience is going to be of that. So, I was just surprised and delighted that was my experience. And yeah, it's been so fucking beautiful to also feel, I was very intentional around the way that we stepped into conception, the way I chose pregnancy, like I had a pregnancy and a birth outside of the system completely. And that required me to deeply trust my body, right? Deeply trust my body. There was no one to outsource to. I couldn't, I wasn't outsourcing to anyone to say, is my baby okay? Should I do this? It was just me and my body and my baby and life, trusting life. And it's actually really interesting. It was only on the weekend I held a 3-day immersion called Claimed in person. And it was only on the weekend where I really fucking felt how much that shifted my business and how much that initiation has initiated me into such a depth of trust in the way that I hold space, the way that I run my business, the way that I hold women. And that was so illuminated to me in this room over 3 days, because in the past, whether it would have been an in-person experience or just in my business in general, I used to micromanage the fuck out of women in my work. Like, are you okay? Are you having a good time? I hope she's having a good experience. I want to make sure like everything is okay for her. And I want to make sure like, I want to micromanage everything about this. And I used to really grip through my business, trying to control everything, trying to make sure everything was okay, trying to control a launch to the nth degree, like all of that. And even little things used to wobble me so deeply. Like if it was an in-person thing, it would be like, oh my gosh, if something wasn't perfect, or I forgot something, or I said something in the room that just like felt a little like, oh, that wasn't, yeah, like I wasn't able to flow and trust as much. And coming out of that 3-day immersion, I'm like, oh my God, my ability to trust is so deeply, like how much I was initiated to that through pregnancy and birth. Oh my God, is deeply serving my mission. And just to deepen there a little, like we had a friend of mine was meant to come look after Oshi on the Saturday of the immersion that just happened, because Jacob was going to be a part of that day with the women. And the night before, she messaged me to say, I can't anymore. I'm sorry, but I can't. Me, even like 6 months ago, would have been like, holy fuck, oh my gosh, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And this is really important. And oh my gosh. And I was just like, sweet. It's like, you know, I trust that this is going to unfold perfectly. And it did. Jacob's sister came and looked after Oshi, and she'd never looked after him before. We've never actually had someone outside of us, you know, be with him for the amount of time he was, you know, he came and fed and all the things. But, and I just so deeply trusted. I was like, here you go. Like, I trusted her to have my son. I trusted the women in the room. Like, yeah, it was just such a beautiful experience to feel that depth of trust, and how much it liberated me so that I could serve so deeply in that space. And yeah, I'm just saying all of that to really bring home this piece of like how much this is the biggest piece for me so far that's influenced my work is pregnancy, birth. That initiation has taught me so deeply to let go, and how that's influencing me as a facilitator, a space holder, a businesswoman is just like the amount I can rest into myself and my work is just, oh, so fucking delicious.
Yeah. And I know your work, you know, started way before motherhood, and you've been on this journey of personal development and I know plant medicine, and you have a whole lead up into, you know, this moment of time where you have handled this transition so gracefully. And I can say this because I talk to you nearly every day, and I see behind the scenes, and I know what you're like through launches and events, and you do hold the most pristine energy of trust and surrender. And it is like, that's not standard, especially, you know, when we're getting started. And it certainly wasn't my initiation into business and motherhood. I mean, I had my oldest son is 12, and I started my first business the same year he was born. And so, and my spiritual awakening really started around that time too. So it's like I was entering all three from such a beginner phase. And, you know, definitely the journey of an entrepreneur and motherhood and awakening, and in partnership also, because, you know, navigating this type of growth and expansion in a relationship is a whole other dynamic. And so all of those mixed together, like that is an initiation of a lifetime. And I say now I'm in a comfortable place of a different orientation, I would say, where, you know, you speak really well of after, you know, being in business and now stepping into motherhood, you're just really relaxed and calm, and there's stuff that's going on in your business, but it's not triggering you because you've been able to cultivate such a sense of safety and surrender in your work and in your life. And yeah, and I'd love to hear about, you know, because in the online space that's not necessarily standard, and there's people at all seasons and cycles of their business that are trying to navigate this. And, you know, we'll see examples of people online, and I like to see this as almost like the Maiden season, and that transition into the motherhood season where, you know, you have to be super diligent with your time and your focus. And, you know, sometimes I sit back and I'm like, wouldn't it be nice to just have like bubble baths all day and spend all the time in the world creating these things? But, you know, really stepping into being more efficient, and almost like for me, it feels like I've had to really integrate work and business together, like trying to really be one and then the other, like that shifting gears was just too much. And I've really had to step into this vision and this season of my life where my family, my business, you know, how we live our lifestyle, like it's all related. And I feel like you and Jacob do a really beautiful job of that with your two businesses in Ashi. But yeah, can you speak to the maiden to mother transition in business and your own experience, but also kind of what you see in the online space, and maybe a message to women that are either, you know, making that transition or about to make that tradition in terms of what they can expect?
I love that. I'm also realizing I didn't answer your question before about what it means to be a full spectrum woman in business. So let's circle back to that
Yes.
at some point. I'm almost seeing two pieces here, because I think, there's like the literal transition when a woman births a baby. So she's in her own body going from maiden to mother. And if she's a business owner, obviously that's going to affect the way she's showing up in business and the way she's running her business. But then I also think there's like a maiden to mother evolution and initiation in like of our business. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Outside of, you know, whether we're birthing children and things, but this like maturation of our business. And I also think why there is such ease, not only in just my own body around my trust, that has a huge part of it, but also I've been in business for like a decade now in different ways, shape or form. I'm including like when I was, you know, a yoga teacher and a network marketer and like all these things, that I've had that almost like maiden stage of being in business where it's just like, I'm going to try this and I'm going to try this and I'm going to try this. And what's it like to do this? And what's it like to try on my voiceover like this? And there's such like play and experimentation and naivety, I think, as well. And I don't know if you'd agree, but if I knew 10 years ago what it would take to really build a business and the grit it would take and the challenges that it would take and, you know, the holding that it would take and just all of that, I don't know if Meg 10 years ago would have chosen that. Right?
Yeah, that's a good one. I love that conversation. Yeah, it's like you only know by going on the journey and finding out who you actually have to become to run a business that is profitable and successful. It's not what you see on Instagram.
Completely, right? And so I think but I think that naivety is like so beautiful and a necessary part of it. And again, oh my God, I would not choose any other way of being. I'm never not running a business. I'm never not being an entrepreneur. Like I never. The challenges are so fucking worth it. But I think, there's this. And in my own experience, that was probably, I'm even going to say the first 6 years. It's probably only been since I really started working with you, like almost 2 years ago, where I have felt in my business this maturation from maiden to mother in the way that I'm holding my business and the way that I'm holding myself and the way that my business wants to be. And one of the things that is really significant that I felt that shift in is in my maiden years, especially maybe say just before we started to work together, my business really popped around 2020. So from like 2020 to maybe 2022, 2023, you know, I went from having a $40,000 a year to like a $250K year. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, what the actual fuck? And I got quite caught up in the, oh my gosh, okay, now I've had a 10K month, I've had a 20K month, I've had a 30K month, I've had a 40K month, oh my gosh. And this like, oh my gosh, more, I need to keep creating more. That's the only thing that matters. And it got really like, it was just all on like the boom, 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 up. How can I create more? More is beautiful, but I was very attached and grippy to that more. It was the
adrenaline fueled business model.
Right. And it was so interconnected to my sense of self. So whenever I had a month where there was a dip, oh my God, my entire sense of being felt like it had taken a dip and I was like punched in the gut. And that was my experience for a few years. And I see that still as like the maiden years of my business, because I was just like so gripping to how can I make the most amount of money this month? What do I have to do? Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And just like grip. And I was not focused on sustainability. I was not focused on building like a like honing my brand's voice and the customer experience and all of these different things. It was, yes, I was still a great facilitator, a great coach. I held a really beautiful space. I was holding beautiful containers. But in terms of like the foundation that I was holding in my business as a business owner and in my work, it wasn't rooted. I hadn't descended, right? And so yeah, I really feel like my own business and myself as a businesswoman took that maiden to mother shift when you stepped into my work, and I really stopped. There was a big death in my own business around, I used to hold a business mastermind, and one launch, it was like 100K launch, 10 women signed up, it sold out. The next time I launched it, 2 women signed up. And like that fucking rocked me. It rocked me. Financially, I was not prepared for that, right? Emotionally, I was not prepared for that. What I made that mean about myself, that was my birth, right? Into the mother season of my business, because I needed to go, wow, like where am I gripping? Where am I making that mean something about my service, my mission, my brand? That was really when I stopped holding business masterminds, because I realized, oh, that's actually not what I'm here to do. There's something else that wants to come through. And the invitation in that was really, how can I let go of trying to make as much money as I can right now, this exact month, and actually create a sustainable business model. And this is where I really started to focus on, can I build the full spectrum woman brand? Maybe that's not me making huge months to begin with, but let's build her voice. Let's deepen into this brand. Let's look at the long fucking game. Let's look at the long game. The mother looks at the long game in business. The maiden does not. The maiden is like month to month. And so, yeah, that was like a huge shift for me. And such a beautiful shift. And that's taken time. It's like the mother has patience in her business. That mother archetype, that mother energy, she has patience. Right? She doesn't make it mean something about herself when, she has a little dip in income. It's just like, perfect. Let's keep going. Yeah. And then if I then bring it back to, the maiden to mother journey of the literal maiden to mother journey. Yeah, I feel like my reflections for any woman that's maybe on the precipice is just like, stay open to what is. Like I know many women that have stepped into motherhood and felt like their business is then a burden, or that, they, were wanting to take some space from it. I'm not saying my journey is the only way or the right way. No way. It was so beautiful that I got to step into that, and I feel really lit up. And I also stay open, but also, can we fucking question the narratives that tell us we can't be all of those things at once? Can we question the narrative that tells us motherhood's going to take from us, our business is going to take from us? That's been the thing that's most fed me and supported me in these early stages of motherhood and businessing. It's like, I'm carrying the story that my motherhood feeds me, and my business feeds me, and my service feeds me. And then just one more piece here is like, I've gotten so fucking good at receiving support. So good at asking for help, receiving support. That was like something I've spent years honing, and something that has been the deepest support for me in this season, in my early postpartum days, and also now, is my ability to go, I need help. Even today, to be on this podcast, Jacob was working, and there was part of me that was like, oh, do I have to cancel? And I've called our birth keeper who loves my son, and I'm like, hey, can you come over and look after him for an hour? Right? That would feel really supportive, so I can come on and do this. Yeah. And yeah, I think really being able to be a woman that calls on that support. We can't run businesses and mother and run a household and do all these things by ourselves. That's fucking impossible. Well, no, it's not impossible, but I don't think a woman can thrive in that. I don't think a woman can feel fed in that. So you want to feel fed in your mothering, in your business, feel like thriving in that, there has to be a level of support. And I feel that from, my husband, from our community, I ask for that as well. So I think that's a big piece too.
And And that just really brings up like the whole death and rebirth process, which is the process of the feminine, right? And so it's like the amount of initiations and stages that a business goes on to get into a more mature phase. And right, we're still only getting started. And so there's going to be a lot more of these cycles to continue, because that is the nature of the feminine. Yes. But I think that these, when we stop, when we get through the phase, and I think that worth tied to business, everybody faces that at some point, because inherently we have been taught at some stage in our life that, we're not worthy and we need to prove and blah, 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 whatever, this stored information is in our cells. We do have to come to the realization that no, like I'm worthy just because I am. This business is separate from me. And my job as a business owner is to make this business entity thrive. And so what type of business skills do I need to understand the difference between revenue and profitability? That was a big one for me. I could make revenue, but was I running a profitable business?
Yes.
No.
Oh,
like, what's the difference between manifesting and like having these visions and then actually fucking delivering on them properly? Like you said, the customer journey, and just understanding what it actually takes moment to moment to be the person that's executing on a particular vision or strategy. And this has to come with experience and time. And so, that to me feels like the mothering stage of business. And I think motherhood does teach you how to get really succinct and smart about these things, because you now have another mouth to feed. Life is maybe not so cushy. And ultimately for me, it was all about, if I am going to be focusing on, my business and pouring my life force into this passion, this creative, birthing process that is my business, and that, inevitably is going to take time away from my children, because I can't duplicate myself and be in the same place at once. I can definitely try to, tend to myself and my nervous system so I can be present and available, to everything. But ultimately, if I'm going to be running this business, it better support me in the way that I desire, and my family. Now, when I put the family there, like as the number one stakeholder are my children, and how can this operation set up so that we all thrive? Like, that was a reorientation that I really needed. And I always talk about like orienting your business around what truly matters, because it is so easy to get caught up in the metrics and the growth. And, as creatives, and I know you are a super creative woman as well. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about the creative process. But for me, like my creation, I can become obsessed with an idea. And I think that's what makes me a good entrepreneur, because I like see something and I will devote myself to it until it happens. But I'm no longer willing to do that unless, it's the family is thriving, and that my day-to-day life is thriving. Even, my relationships. There was a long period of time where I would prioritize my business over close relationships in my life, because I feel like it was because of some level of control that I had over my business. Like, this isn't going well, I can just focus everything on this. And that's also been something that I've had to reconcile in coming into just alignment and awareness of what truly matters. So I love what you're saying. I resonate so much. And I'd love to hear, how you navigate the creativity, because I know I work with you. You're such a creative vessel, and you understand the process of like being a doula to these visions that are meant to come through us. And I feel like full spectrum woman for you, like that's not a business. This is a soul assignment, like your exact life path, your personal hero's journey. And you just posted a brilliant post on Instagram today, kind of your before and after. Your personal hero's journey has positioned you to receive the fullness of full spectrum woman, which to me is the awakening of women and helping women return into their bodies and their pleasure and their eros, and set a new example of what it means to be woman. Like that's a huge freaking mission, and that's pouring through your channel into your business. And so I'd love to hear what your process is with creative energy, and how you stay grounded and present to, Jacob and Oshi and what matters, while being a conduit to this amazing mission that you've been granted with.
Thank you. First of all, that's so beautiful. And it's so beautiful to hear you say I'm a very creative woman, because I grew up not feeling that I was creative at all. I was very smart. I was like such a high achiever. I knew how to study and get good marks, but I never felt connected to my creativity. So this has been like a decade journey learning how to be in business and unravel my patterns of control and unravel my patterns of thinking that I have to try really fucking hard and like force a creation out, versus resting into a creation and being the vessel for that creation. That doesn't mean I don't put effort in and I don't, spend hours at the computer doing things. And, I'm not particular about, the way things look, and, that have a clear vision and like bringing that to life. But I think that's been the biggest piece that has allowed my authentic creations to come through, has been letting go. The more I let go, the more I unplug from my patterns of control and thinking that it's my job to micromanage everything, right? The more powerfully and potently my mission is able to amplify through me and in the world. And yeah, this is even like now with, your team, and like, there's quite a few women that work in my work and work in my work, like, on the team. And I used to feel, and I'm also very particular about, there needs to be, because I am very good at what I do and I can do all the back end kind of stuff too, there needs to be a certain level of team that I'm able to go, you've got this. And I've deeply found that in your team. But yeah, learning to be like, I trust the team to do that. I can relax into that. I can, my job is the creativity. I can bring those pieces through. That's been so important and such a practice for me as well. I also think I'm able to so deeply trust what life is trying to create through me, because I know the feeling of trying to create something that's not authentic to me. And I think that's the maiden stage of business. We hear someone else's voice. We might replicate a little of what a coach is doing that we enjoy. And I've had seasons of that, like working with particular women and being like, okay, I'm going to take a bit of that, and like not even realizing, but my voice was, I think that's how we find our voice, but my voice was very much merged with their voice. And, and then this was, that experience I had before where I ran the business mastermind. It went epically. And then it didn't. And one of the learnings of that, one of the heartbreaking learnings of that at the time, it was financially really hard. It was, to my ego, it was hard. I had 10 women sign up last time, and now there's only 2 women. What the fuck? Oh my gosh, I'm a failure. Like, what are people going to think? What are these 2 women going to think? Da, da, da. But a huge gift in that was to go, is this actually what I'm meant to be fucking doing? Is this business mastermind what life actually wants to create through me? When I sat with it, no, there was something else. Like, my mission and my voice totally changed through that experience, right? I stopped. Again, I hold women in business. My one-on-one clients, a lot of women and full spectrum women are in business, but I stopped trying to be a business coach, because I'm not here to be a business coach. I'm here to support women to descend the fuck into their bodies, right? That supports them in business, that supports them in mothering, that supports them in all realms of life. But that experience of things not working, right, and feeling that in my body was such deep clarity, and gave me such deep clarity, and was so illuminating to be like, okay, what is life wanting to birth through me? What is the authentic creation that's wanting to come through me? And yeah, I think that is now how I trust my creativity, because I know what it feels like when I don't. I know the results, financially. I know the results in my body when I try and force something that is not true. It's not worth it to me. It's not worth it to me.
Yeah. And I want to get to descending in our bodies and why that's important as business owners, and how your work really supports that. But I also want to just say, your experience with this mastermind, selling it out and then having to, and this happens all the time. Like every business owner is like, yep, I've had that experience where I thought it was going to be successful and then the launch has failed. And, I think that when you take the journey of descent and you understand, your role, your zone of genius, and what you're actually here to deliver, but most importantly, you learn how to strip away all of the sensation that is making the thoughts that are telling you, that whatever the negative thought is about your worth or your offer, and really just listening to what is this moment teaching me and asking me, like you so beautifully said. And I feel like it's always bigger than you are playing. It's always a bigger level. It's always more your voice, more all in on your genius. Sometimes it's rest. Sometimes it is taking a step back and really nourishing yourself so you can get into a place to be able to open up and receive. But yes. I think that if we could see those roadblocks as redirects and really look at the information available within us and around us and respond to that, and I think responding is often what are my gifts? What does the market need? Finding something, the junction there. But yeah, I think that's a really, really important to say. And I do think a woman who takes the journey of descent into her body and is able to rest in that void space, in the unknown, and fully receive the information is going to take the quickest path, because it will be the most direct path, instead of when we ignore those subtle signs and we keep kind of hammering it out. And believe me, I've done this more times than I would like to admit. It's there's roadblocks, but we're going to push through. So yeah, could you speak to the power of being descended in our bodies as women and making decisions in our business from that place?
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to touch on a few pieces that you just shared then. And I don't feel, just from what I said before, I'm not saying that every time, because failure is a part of business, right?
Right. Business is problem solving.
Right. I love that. And that it's not saying every time, a launch doesn't go to plan, it means you need to fully redirect and fully rebrand or let go of what you were launching. Actually, a deep practice of business is staying the fucking path and having patience and rooting deeper down into your offering, even when no one showed up. Sometimes that's
evolving it.
Totally.
Evolving it to the market.
Right. So, sometimes that's the truth of the moment. And I love this question in all realms of life. What's the truth of the moment? What am I being invited into? And, the truth of the moment, my invitation in that time of the business mastermind failing, was, I need a fucking shift. What's true? My voice needs to be different. This offering is no longer who I am, all of those things. Maybe the truth of the moment for someone after a failed launch is, I wasn't fucking bringing the full force of myself into that launch. I was hesitating. I was so scared of being too much. I didn't send as many emails, or I didn't fully show up on Instagram because I was scared of are people going to think I'm coming in too hot? Are people going to think it's too much? Maybe that's the truth of the moment. It's just fucking bring it next time. Hold this creation as if it's the most sacred, exciting, magical thing that anyone's ever going to step into. So that could be the truth of the moment. Not that there's anything wrong with the offering, or anything to be evolved. Often there is each time, the refinement and everything. And then just one more piece around failure here. When I was in that time of feeling failure, and I was such a high achiever in high school and university, straight A student, high distinction student, I didn't really taste a lot of failure. My thing was avoid failure at all costs. So when I started to taste failure in my business, it fucking hurt. It was heartbreaking. And I remember having a conversation with a dear friend of mine, his name's Pete, and he's in business too. And he's had, roller coaster ride of business as well. And he had a man in his life, an older man, his ex-partner's father, and he was a big businessman. And Pete said the best advice that this man, Barry, gave him was, he said, it wasn't even advice, but he said, I will never go into business with someone that hasn't gone bankrupt. And this guy was a huge fucking businessman. And, I'm not saying we all have to go bankrupt, no fucking way, but really the essence of that is this businessman trusted other people in business that had been through failure. In fact, he only trusted other people who had failed and gotten back up, who had failed and then rebuilt. And I think that's something we have to own if we're on the path of business and entrepreneurship, is that can we stop trying to avoid failure, and actually can we just lean the fuck in? And if failure meets us, not if failure meets us, when failure meets us, can we use it as the compost that's helping us to, you know, bloom bigger, grow bigger, root down deeper into our missions and into our voice and into what we're really here to bring.
Ooh, I love that.
That shifted everything for me, to see how much I was like going through business so deeply scared and so in avoidance of failing, when then I was like, fuck yeah, I want to be on this entrepreneurship path for like decades and decades to come. Can I open to this, right? Can I welcome this? Can I see this as something that's for me? Can I stop making it mean so much about me when this happens?
It's like a shame shifter. Takes it from shameful to empowering, like, yes,
totally.
I'm going to be that one, hopefully, that doesn't go bankrupt, but that is going to learn and evolve and, yeah, have a prosperous long career in business.
Totally. And like I said, I don't wish bankruptcy on anyone. Like, I don't think it has to get to
that
this
point. From the field.
But,
no bankruptcy for anyone.
It might just be like a launch that didn't go well, or to plan, or when no one rocks up to your event, or you put all this effort into a live event or a live something, and then like you sell one ticket and you have to like, you know, rejig it or do something. Yeah, like that's part of business. And yeah, when we remove the shame from that, we're able to move more quickly and more efficiently and more, you know, gracefully towards what we're really here to bring. You asked me a question before that around
descending,
the importance of descending.
Woman. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, descending means this like journey a woman takes from her head, not even just her head into her heart. I think that's so much a part of the spiritual experience, an important part of the spiritual experience, or the embodied experience, head to heart, you know, getting out of our head, starting to open, starting to be vulnerable, starting to connect with our emotions and our feelings. But really, when I say a woman that's descended into her body, it's taking that journey even further down into our wombs, our pussies, like the part of us that the world taught us to disconnect from, the part of us the world taught us was wrong, was dirty, was shameful, because that's where our motherfucking power lives. One of the things I say is, you disconnect a woman from her pussy, you disconnect her from her power. And that means you reconnect a woman to her pussy, you reconnect her to her power, right? Like her eros, her aliveness, her radiance, her instincts. This is really where our instinctual nature, our primal nature lives as women. Like the animal part of us, when we learn to reclaim this primal animal within us, our instincts, our eros, our radiance, like all of these pieces, not only do we just feel more alive and more integrated, more whole as a woman, but we're able to move through the world like rooted in that. And how that shows up in business is we're not just existing here, like shoulders up in our business. We're not over analyzing everything. We're not looking out at the market and following every fucking woman in our industry, looking at how they're doing it and then deciding, how do I do it? Should I look like her? Should I have my voice like that? Should I do this? Should I do that? Yes, obviously that can be a beautiful part of business when we're like tasting other people's energies and we're tasting and looking and, you know, feeling into the space. Beautiful. But if all of our decision making is coming from that place, we are going to constantly feel in a state of comparison, discombobulation, you know, just headiness as we walk through our business. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Is that right? How, you know, where when a woman, and I've experienced this in my own body and I witnessed this in, you know, so many of the women that come into my world, when a woman takes that descent into her body, she's more rooted in her decision making, her creativity. You know, her body's more liberated for her to actually feel her authentic creativity and trust her authentic creativity. She trusts where her body is asking her to go in her business. Again, like that story of me after my business mastermind failed, to be like, okay, I'm going to root down, I'm going to feel this heartbreak, I'm going to feel all the shame, I'm going to feel all this shit, right? That's a huge part of being a descended woman, to feel all that arises on the journey too, not trying to bypass or push through, like to feel it so deeply, to let it, you know, remake you, let it make you more of you, let it transform you. And then to go, like after this business mastermind, for me to go, okay, what's the fucking truth here? Where am I to go? Body lead me, body move me, body show me. And, you know, on a regular basis, and I love that you witness this in me, like on a daily/weekly basis in my own business, like I'll just get pings of like, oh no, like we thought we were going to launch this day, but actually that's not true. Let's push it back a week. We thought it was going to have this name. Like we're in a full spectrum woman launch right now. I decided a week ago that it was going to be completely fucking revitalized and transformed and have a new name and all of these different things. And we were going to hold it in a totally different frequency. That happened a week ago because my body was like, there's something here that just doesn't feel fully landed. And I explored that in my body, and then I allowed that to come through. It's not always convenient because it means, shifting language and changing things on the sales page and staying up late to change that. But that was what was being asked of me. And so I think when a woman descends into her body, she's able to hold her business and her mission with more authenticity, with more openness, with more trust. Right? She's got that relationship with life as well. And she's not feeling like she's like gripping or controlling her way to make it happen. She's just the vessel to make it happen. And not only do I feel like those kind of missions are louder, and not even louder, but more potent in the world, I feel like the women leading those missions just feel more alive. They're more relaxed in their body as they bring their voice and their mission to the world.
Yeah. Oh, amen to that. And you mean your work is the gold standard, I think, for women in business to take that journey of descent and understand what it feels like to be in business from an embodied state. Because, I think most people, and just if you zoom out to like business as a model, as a structure, like it's a very masculine structure. It's a very neck up process for most people. Heart up, hopefully there's some love and some good intentions into what we're doing. But, when it does come to like that full descent and operating in that way, and you are such a beautiful example of it. And this is one of the reasons I love working with you, and that I don't mind when you switch something up a week before launch. Maybe not everybody in the team at all moments would be as enthusiastic as us, but that is our job, is to truly listen to the creation and what it's asking. And I think the only way that we can do that accurately is by discerning the information that's present to us in our bodies, because, our minds, whatever, they can create whatever story we want, depending on, what we've recently seen or read or what other people are doing. And that is not meeting the moment as it is. That's meeting, somebody else's past or, potentially future, and trying to, manipulate our experience or our business to meet that. And so I think it's, like you said, a much more authentic experience when we just respond to what is in the moment. And part of the creative process is we see a vision, we feel, and that again is not external to us, that is through us. And then we are, it's more like being shown. And then we can kind of strategize. And, I'm a digital marketing strategist, so I fucking love strategy. However, we can work with a future timeline and plan all of the details in terms of, what are we offering and when, and where are we putting, getting your word out there, and all the things that we can craft into a strategy. But until we start moving with the strategy, it shifts as we move, right? Like the field, the frequency that we create shifts the business. So we need to be in response to that, and to have the power and the authority to say, like, this isn't sitting right. This is what I feel is next. And that's courageous to make those moves all of the time. And I think that's part of the finesse of being in business. You just get used to making, abrupt changes and courageous choices, and trusting that they're going to work out, because you get more evidence of them working out when you move in that way. So just honoring you and like your process. Yeah.
Can I just add one thing there? Because I want to circle back to that maturation process in business, that like Maiden to mother, like in the business. I know I used to make abrupt changes in my business when I was in that more Maiden phase, but it didn't come from truth. It didn't come from body. It came from, oh, maybe if I change this, it'll work. Like maybe not being able to really land and trust in a launch. And I thought if a launch, whilst I was in a launch, if I quickly change the branding, or if I quickly change the colors, or if I quickly, made changes to the sales page, that it would work. And so again, that can be part of the process. That can be, but there's a difference between almost like not being able to just land and trust and rest into, a launch, our business, and almost these frenetic, quick changes versus changes that are like, you know, are deeply coming from an embodied place. They can still be quick, they can still be like, yes, move, but it's not this like, I must do this so that it works. It's like, I must do this because this is what I'm being asked.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it's a completely different feeling. And I think the first one is external and fear-based. And the second one is like a knowing inside and truth-based. Like it's not emotional. It's just, this needs to happen because it feels true. So
totally.
That's the difference. Which brings me to my next question. And you know, my journey in the descent, like I was a neck up person for so long, and that served me really well until it didn't. And I was called through my circumstances to, you know, take that journey. And I know I hear you talk about this, and a lot of people are talking about the correlation between feeling and receiving. And obviously to feel, we need to kind of thaw out all of the ways in which we're not able to access. And I know you do a lot of practices inside Full Spectrum Woman to help women relax and soften into their bodies. But can you explain your experience with the ability to feel and the ability to receive?
And you mean that, like as we expand our ability to feel, we expand our ability to receive? Yeah,
do you think deeply. It's correlated?
Oh my gosh, so correlated in so many ways. Yeah, and I feel like for me, it's that descent piece again, because a woman that's devoted to feeling, you know, we can drop into our hearts. And I think when we drop into our hearts, we're then just like, I want to feel joy and I want to feel gratitude. And again, nothing wrong with that, but I'm doing this kind of like love and light voice because that's kind of what that stage is. It's like, I want to feel love and I want to feel gratitude. And, you know, I want to be in my heart because it feels a bit yummy and delicious. And there's that texture of feeling, which is beautiful and part of the process. But when I talk about feeling, again, it's that descent into pussy and womb and like the deeper parts of us. And it's the devotion to feeling the gritty. Like when a launch has failed, can I fucking sit with my shame? Can I let the shame so deeply take up space in my body instead of trying to push past it and pretend it's not there and bypass it and just get on with it? Can I meet the shame in my body? Right? That's the only way through. And that is why when we are women devoted to feeling it all, devoted to being so deeply alive in our bodies, feeling the gritty things, feeling the shame, feeling the heartbreak, feeling the disconnection, feeling all of that, that's what liberates our body and our ability to receive. The only way out is through. And so that's a big reason why I think our ability to feel is so deeply correlated to our ability to receive, because if we're not feeling, our body is not a vessel for receivership, right? It's clogged, it's stuck. There's, you know, the energy isn't flowing. And if we're not meeting that shame, right, that's just life is just going to keep giving us experiences to reflect back that shame. So we fucking meet it at some point, right? So when we say yes to the shame, we're saying yes to that initiation that life is offering us. Yeah. If I wouldn't have felt the shame after that business mastermind launch, if I would have just gone, keep going, do it again. Let's work out what went wrong. No doubt I would have had another failure that brought me to my motherfucking knees again, until I sat down and I was like, can I be with the part of me that thinks I fucked up and I failed and nothing's ever going to work out? Can I be with the part of me that thinks that it's such a shameful experience and I don't want anyone to know that I failed in this moment? That, my ability to feel that and cry with that and grieve with that and let that take me down and let that take me to my knees and let that break me open. That is why the next time, you know, I lent into launching, you know, I was able to receive in deeper ways than I have. So feeling, receiving, inextricably connected, I feel, especially as women. Yeah.
And when I say receiving too, like I am talking about, you know, financial abundance, success, all of that. But when I speak of receiving, I think it's more so just receiving all that you already are, receiving the vision that you're already living and the wholeness that you already are. And so everything that we're kind of resisting to feel, because it, like you said, it's like not palatable, it doesn't feel good, it triggers something in us that makes us, you know, fight, flight, freeze, all of the things. When we learn and we can find safety in being able to feel the feels, and I'm not an expert at this, but I'm getting way better You know, my decoy is often like distract and focus on something else. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, find solace in being able to just like shift our focus and going somewhere else without properly digesting what's actually happening in our system.
Totally.
But when we can learn to properly digest and feel, and ultimately just come back to a state of like contented wholeness, then we receive all that we are and everything that we desire in the moment. And so it's almost like this reverse engineering of like, oh, it's not like that out there we're trying to receive. It's actually all that we really are. And in receiving this, I have all that I desire right here.
Oh, I want to speak a little more into that, because even in saying, when I said, yeah, my ability to be with a shame, and then the next time, you know, I opened, you know, actually after that, in a financial capacity, the last few years since that experience, I've been in such a build phase of my business. In fact, I was making more money before, you know, when I ran that sold out mastermind. I had, you know, I was having bigger months then than I've had some big months in the last few years, but I don't feel that I have it. I feel so much more fed, and I feel I'm creating a way more sustainable business, and I can feel the build. Even, you know, this month has been one of my biggest months, and like I've been working to this sustainable place, and I'm receiving. I feel more fed and more relaxed and more open because what I'm creating feels so fucking authentic. Right. And there's less of the grip and less of the force. And so, yeah, I love that you just brought that this isn't just about this isn't just about financial receivership or financial abundance and wealth. Yes, that's an important part of business. That's a part of the reason why everyone's in business, right? And that has to be a part of the conversation. And I don't want to be a part of conversations that are exclusively about that, right? I want to be a part of conversations, especially with women, around how does it feel? How does it feel? Do you feel alive? Do you feel in integrity with what you're bringing through? How does your voice feel? Does it feel true, right? Does it feel good? Do you feel, one of the biggest reflections I got on the weekend at my 3-day immersion, we had this beautiful experience at the end where we each got, you know, to take the Queen's chair and get reflections from everyone and get loved up on everyone. And I took the seat last. And one of the biggest reflections I got from every woman in the space was the ease in which there was no compartmentalization of me over that weekend. I brought my son in to feed. I was with my husband. I was like, it wasn't like businesswoman, facilitator here, mother here, this, there. Like I was just all of it in that room, right? And that for me is success and wealth and abundance in business, that I don't have to go, oh, I'm facilitating now, or oh, I'm being a mother now, or it's like it's this gorgeous union and merging of all of that. And yeah, for me, that is receivership. That is wealth. I'm so here to make glorious amounts of money and be a steward of such deep wealth, but not at the cost of having to compartmentalize myself.
Yeah, amen to that. And you know, when we speak about receivership, and a lot of like what you're teaching inside Full Spectrum Woman, you know, the descent and working with working with our pleasure and the death, rebirth, creative process, like all of the things of the feminine, which I think it's our superpower as women in business. Like if we're disconnected from this part of our innate ability as women, we are operating in business as men, or as, you know, lifeless versions of ourselves, essentially. You know, this ability to tune in to the feminine and everything you teach inside Full Spectrum Woman is the difference between having an integrated full spectrum lifestyle where it is all just, and not all, like we obviously ebb and flow. It's not all going to be like fun and flow every day. We're going to meet our challenges, but it's more united. It's more whole in the way that we live. Can you speak a little bit more in terms of, you know, Full Spectrum Woman? You've got an amazing program. It's coaching with you, group coaching with you, 2 to 3 times a month. It's a full curriculum, like how this could benefit a woman in business and how it could truly transform them through the initiation of your program into their next level.
Oh, I love this. Yeah, my work, and even Full Spectrum Woman, like I said, I don't specifically market this or hold this as a business container at all, but I would say majority of women that step into my world are entrepreneurs and creators and business women. And there is, like we just said, and there's a inextricable connection between our body and our receivership, and how landed and descended we are in our body, and our ability to hold a mission and be a voice for a mission, and to, steward wealth or steward a mission through in the world. And so, yeah, I would say, the Full Spectrum Woman is really this pathway, or this initiation into the body, into pussy, into womb, into descending, not just into the heart, but into, the full primal, gritty, wild, untamed parts of being woman. And of course, that's going to touch every realm of a woman's life, her relationship, her sex life, her business, her mothering, all of it. And when I've seen this in my own life, even the year that I really devoted myself to coming home to my sexuality and my body was that year I spoke of earlier, where I went from a 40K year to a $250,000 year. Yes, there were other pieces that obviously I'm invested in mentorship. I did all these things, but that was a huge foundational piece to that, right? Not part of the journey. So yeah, I would say if a woman is knowing, especially if you're a woman listening and you feel yourself in business from that real shoulders up place, if you feel yourself getting caught in, comparison and just really exhausted from thinking yourself through your business and forcing and gripping and feeling like, this tight hold on your business. And I know what that feels like. If this is you, this pathway and this initiation is for you. Right? It's going to support you to release the grip in your body, release the grip that you're holding on your business, so that you can truly bring the voice, the mission, the wisdom, the facilitation that you're really here to bring, which will naturally, obviously, undoubtedly shift what you're receiving financially, what you're receiving, in your entire business. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. And I would love to know, what is next for you? What do you feel like, where do you feel like your body of work is going? And what is turning you on the most about your work right now?
Okay, I love this because I have deep clarity from the weekend. I haven't even told you this. And
Woo,
now I'm like,
okay.
Do I say it? Because it's
AI, please transcribe.
It's not fully fucking landed yet, but I got
share what you want. We can catch up on the rest after this.
I got such, and for those listening, who the fuck knows when this is going to be? This could be in the next 3 months. This could be in the next 3 years. But I just got such a deep feeling and a deep, a deep, full-bodied nudge after the weekend that I'm here to run some kind of facilitator training for women, some kind of feminine embodiment facilitator training, and teach women how to hold other women, and teach women how to guide other women into their bodies and take that descent. That just feels like the next evolution of my work. I've been teaching this work for a while. It's such a gift to witness women, drop into their bodies. And I had multiple women in the room on the weekend say, like, how do I want to do this? I want to learn how you hold space like this. I want to learn how you facilitate like this. So yeah, this just, and oh my God, it just feels so exciting. I've never really allowed myself to fully receive the idea of doing that. So that just feels so fucking exciting, and just, what I'm being called to allow myself to be the vessel for. So watch this space. Who knows when?
Heard it here first.
Yeah, but I'm really excited. And that piece also, I'm really, and we've had conversations around this, like knowing that I am here to really support women in their leadership, and in like these kind of conversations, these business kind of conversations turn me the fuck on. I love them. And even though I spoke about that business mastermind that failed and all those pieces, I know the next evolution of my business as well is having more women that are deeply in leadership roles and creating movements and really wanting to hone their voice, like really, having them in Full Spectrum Woman, having more of them in my work, having more of them in different containers, that really fucking excites me, because these conversations are so important.
Yes, just seeing you in all of that, and so excited and honored to create that with you. I love co-creation and just how it works, and when something is received and then passed on, and how it works with everybody involved to bring it to life is truly spectacular. And like you said, you don't know the timing. You know that feels true, and that's one of your next steps. And now we get to pay attention to what is being revealed to us and what the truth of the moment is, and take steps as we go. But right now, Full Spectrum Woman is taken over, and it is at this moment open for enrollment. It's a year. Do you want to take a moment and just tell everybody listening about Full Spectrum Woman and how they can be a part of it?
Yeah, I'm calling this like the new era of Full Spectrum Woman. I've been running this in many ways, shapes and forms for almost 5 years, but this time we have transformed her into a year-long group coaching journey. So all that we spoke about in this podcast, really, Full Spectrum Woman is the place women come to descend into their bodies. Maybe they've already been on the spiritual path for a little while, and they're like, I know how to be a bit vulnerable. I know how to, open my heart a little. But women that are really wanting to take that further journey, like into their pussy, into their womb, to be a woman that feels it all, the gritty pieces, the darker pieces of our womanhood, the parts of our womanhood that the world taught us not to be, or not to express, or not to embody. Our eroticism, our fierce voice, our instincts, our primal nature, all of these pieces. This is really what goes down in this space. And we've transformed it into a year container. So you get to come and be devoted to this year and be held in this container and have me as your coach for an entire year as you do this. I'm such a big advocate that, yes, like even listening to this podcast, there might be elements that are going to change the way you show up. Listening to other podcasts, all amazing. But I don't think real life embodied changes happens over an hour podcast, but real life embodied changes can happen in a motherfucking year. Oh my God, the changes that can happen in a year. The changes I've seen in my own body, the changes I've seen in the lives, the bodies and the lives and the relationships and the businesses of the women that come into Full Spectrum Woman in a year. Like, oh my gosh, how much can change in that period of time? So yeah, if you're a woman that knows this, and you would feel that if you're listening here, if you know that, oh my God, that descent is what I'm needing next, and it's a little scary and it makes me nervous, and what am I going to be required to do? What's it's going to ask of me? Beautiful. Like let that guide you, let that lead you, let that pull you into this space. And come on this journey with me for the next year, because it's going to be wild and beautiful and full spectrum. And I can't wait to be in your corner as you give yourself permission to be this. Yeah.
Not only is it Meg, it's a whole community of women that are on this rite of passage right now. And I truly feel like it is a rite of passage. And
it is.
This is the bridge between somebody that's not that they're not, but they know there's more. They know there's more to being a woman. They know that there's more to their relationships. And, I am a testament to your work, like a 20-year marriage. I feel like I'm so happy to celebrate. I've never felt more in love and connected and just having the time of my life with my husband of 20 years. We met when we were babies. And so, your work was such a support in us maturing together, because when you are on a growth journey in relationship for that long, things can fall out of sync. Throw in some kids, throw in, some businesses, and just, the journey that you take women on to ultimately come back to the truth of themselves, and helping them develop the language to be able to have powerful, dialogues with their loved ones, to be able to really honor their true needs and desires it's world class. And so I always recommend anybody who wants to go on this journey of stepping into their womanhood, to descend into their body. You are the teacher that I so highly recommend. So everybody check out Meg's work. Full Spectrum Woman is open for enrollment. I will be adding all of the links to the show notes, so you'll know where to find her. And yeah, is there anything else you want to say before we close?
I'd just like to thank you and your work and your team. And like I said, your team and you was such a huge part in the maturation of my own business. And I'm very much like the maturation of Maiden to Mother in my business, in the business sense, has been realizing I can't do it all. And part of being able to release the grip has also been able to go, oh, I need to trust other humans to hold me and support me and run this mission with me. And you and your team have just been so fucking phenomenal at that. I could not hold the bigness of the vision that I have and the mission that I have and all that's coming without you and your team. And it just makes me so fucking happy to be doing this with you and to have, I have had other women work for me in the past. And when a particular chapter closed with my last support, and I was looking for someone, I was like, I want someone that's really fucking invested in my mission. I want someone that like really is living and breathing it alongside me and believes in it and believes in believes in women coming home to their body and coming home to themselves. And you are just that. And that makes such a difference, right? Having someone, believe in my mission alongside me. And I'm just so fucking grateful for all that you do and all that you offer me and my mission and the women that work in my world too. So thank you.
Oh, I love you. Thank you. And that's the standard, right? That's how good it gets to be. Win-win, win-win, win-win. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And all the links are in the show notes. See you next time.